The signal came in at 0317, local ship time, on a frequency we were not monitoring. Ensign Dow flagged it. She had a habit of running wide-band passive sweeps during the overnight watch, something she picked up from an instructor at the Signals Academy who believed you learned more from what people did not say than from what they did. The instructor had been talking about interrogation technique. Dow applied it to radio bands. "Captain Marsh," she said, "I've got a sidelobe leak on the emergency spectrum. Coalition encoding, but it's bounced. The directional headers are corrupted." I was in the galley, heating a ration pack that tasted the way it sounded. Origin? Best I can triangulate. Kahar corridor, maybe 4 hours off our heading. Reads as a refugee distress pattern. Continuous loop. Coalition cipher. Not meant for us. Not meant for us covered most of what we picked up out here. The Viralin Reach was a quiet sector. Earth ran supply freighters through it because nothing happened. Our ship, the Danaher, was listed as a Class 3 bulk cargo hauler on every manifest filed with the Freight Authority. That was technically accurate. The cargo bays held 600 tons of agricultural seed, medical kits, and water purification modules bound for the Eller Station outpost. They also held 4 concealed weapons mounts, 2 countermeasure arrays, and a rack of short-range interceptors behind a false bulkhead. The Terran Freight Authority called it hardened logistics. The crews called it a Q-ship. The paperwork called it a supply freighter. The distress pattern was a coalition standard, a compressed, repeating burst designed to reach coalition relay stations along the Kahar corridor. Except the relay at marker 1140 had gone dark 18 months ago. Some dispute between the coalition's Interior Ministry and its Border Command. Nobody had funded the replacement. The beam had hit the dead relay, bounced, and shed a side lobe that bled onto the broadband emergency spectrum, which was where Dow's wideband sweep found it. "It wasn't aimed at us," Dow said again, as if this settled something. "Play it." She did. 11 seconds on loop. A voice speaking Korathi, the refugee trade language used by most of the displaced communities in the Kahar corridor. My Korathi was limited, but the cadence was unmistakable. "Convoy in distress. Engines failing. Hostile contact in system. Requesting immediate escort to the coalition processing corridor at Taven Point." "How old?" "Best estimate, 9 hours. Accounting for bounce lag and signal propagation." 9 hours. The convoy had been calling for 9 hours, and the beam had been bouncing off a dead relay the entire time, going nowhere the coalition could hear it. The side lobe that reached us was an accident, a whisper that had fallen sideways off a signal aimed at someone else's infrastructure. I pulled up the navigation chart. Kahar corridor, bearing 1140. 4 hours at our rated cruise speed. 3 hours and 10 minutes at the speed the Freight Authority pretended we never used. Log the intercept. Note that the signal was not addressed to any Terran vessel or frequency. Note that we are the nearest asset. "Nearest Terran asset," Dow corrected. "Nearest asset," I said. "The corridor relay is dead. The Coalition processing station at Taven Point has a 16-hour response window on a good day. We're it." She logged it. I changed the heading. The Korathi convoy was smaller than I had expected. 7 ships, 3 running dark, 2 bleeding atmosphere from hull breaches that looked like weapons damage. The lead vessel was a converted cargo hauler, twice the Danaher's size but older by decades, its hull patched with alloy that did not match, and welds that told a story of improvisation under fire. The hostile contact was still in system. 2 Sethran-flagged patrol corvettes holding station at roughly 40,000 kilometers, close enough to interdict any jump attempt, far enough to claim they were not actively engaging. The Sethran had been running a slow squeeze interdiction campaign through the Kahar corridor for months, stopping refugee convoys on the pretext of customs enforcement, holding them until their fuel or their nerve ran out. I hailed the convoy on the broadband channel. "Open frequency." "Korathi convoy, this is the Terran supply freighter Danaher, registry TFA 2291. We intercepted your distress signal. We are 4 minutes from your position. State your situation." The reply took 30 seconds. A voice, calm but thin, the kind of calm that has a cost. "Terran vessel, this is convoy matriarch Sayeth aboard the Rethane. We did not transmit to your frequency. Our distress beam was aimed at Coalition Relay 1140. Relay 1140 is dark, I said. Your beam bounced. We caught the side lobe. A pause. Then, you are responding to a signal that was not addressed to you. That's correct, matriarch. Another pause. Longer. I imagined her standing on the bridge of the Rethane, looking at her displays. 7 ships, 2 of them hold. Sethran corvettes at the edge of interdiction range, and now a Terran freighter, unasked for, unscheduled, claiming it had caught the scraps of a signal that was never meant to leave the Coalition's internal corridor. We requested escort to Tavern Point, she said carefully. We are a civilian convoy, 411 passengers, including children. The Sethran vessels have been shadowing us for 6 days. They have interdicted our jump window twice. Understood. We can escort you to Tavern Point. You are a supply freighter. I let that sit for a moment. Then I told Dow to open the concealment panels on the forward weapons mounts. It takes about 8 seconds. There is a sound, a low mechanical sequence, plates retracting, the targeting array pressurizing. On the outside, the Danaher's hull would have changed shape. 2 weapons blisters where there had been smooth cargo plating. The emissions profile would have shifted. Any vessel scanning us would have seen the freighter's signature flicker and resolve into something with edges. Matriarch saith, we are a supply freighter. We are also armed. We are changing course to place ourselves between your convoy and the Sethran patrol. Please hold your current heading. Silence on the channel. The Sethran corvettes noticed. I watched their drives flare on the scope, a brief, hot bloom as they reassessed the geometry. A Terran vessel, suddenly reading as armed, sliding between them and the convoy they had been squeezing for 6 days. Sethran interdiction doctrine relies on the absence of opposition. They sit at the edge. They wait. They do not engage armed escorts because the economics do not work. Corvettes are expensive. Refugee convoys do not carry anything worth fighting a Q-ship over. It took them 11 minutes to withdraw. Not fast, methodical, face-saving. They pulled to 60,000, then 80. Then their drives went cold, and they drifted toward the edge of the system. Standard retreat protocol, no communication. I kept the Danaher between the convoy and the Sethran's last known position for 2 hours, while Matriarch Saith's engineers restarted 2 of the dark ships and patched the others. We transferred 60 tons of medical supplies and water purification modules from our cargo bay. The legitimate cargo, the part of the manifest that was not a euphemism. It was not enough. It was what we had. When the convoy was ready to move, I escorted them to the Tavern Point processing corridor. 14 hours. The Sethran did not return. At the corridor boundary, Matriarch Saith hailed us one final time. Captain Marsh. Matriarch, your vessel intercepted a distress beam aimed at the Coalition relay network. That beam was never meant to reach a Terran frequency. The relay was dead, and the side lobe was an accident. That is what our signals officer assessed, yes. Then your response was to a signal that no one sent to you. I thought about that for a moment. Matriarch, the signal was on the emergency spectrum. It described a convoy in distress, with 411 passengers, and hostile contact in system. The encoding was Coalition. The intent was universal. You were a supply freighter. We were the nearest asset. She was quiet for several seconds. I have thought about that silence since, what it carried. Not gratitude exactly. Something closer to recalibration. She had aimed her call at the infrastructure designed to receive it, and no part of that infrastructure had answered. The signal had bounced off dead equipment and leaked sideways, and the vessel that caught the leak was not supposed to exist on any frequency she had used. The Coalition will not have a record of your intercept, she said. We will file one. With whom? With us. The convoy passed into the processing corridor. I watched the 7 ships, 5 limping, 2 barely holding atmosphere, until they cleared the boundary markers. Then I told Dow to close the weapons panels, and I set a course back to Eller Station to deliver what remained of our cargo. The log entry reads, intercepted side lobe leak from Coalition distress pattern, 0317. Signal not addressed to Terran frequencies. Nearest relay inoperative. Responded as nearest asset. Escorted 7-vessel refugee convoy to Tavern Point processing corridor. Transferred 60 tons humanitarian cargo. No engagement. Sethran interdiction patrol withdrew upon reclassification of escort vessel. Dow asked me once, weeks later, whether I had thought about not responding, about logging the intercept and continuing on our heading since the signal was not ours. I told her the signal was on the emergency spectrum. She said that was not an answer. I said it was the only one I had.